this nation. Because of the lack of reporting at the time, we don't know all of them, but we can name several. One was Augustus Mumford. Augustus was in his 20s when a cloud of oppression spread over this land. British authorities began regulating and policing the American colonists, and in 1774, the Royal Navy closed off the port of Boston to punish the angry rebels there. Augustus was outraged, calling the actions of the British government cruel, malignant, and worse than savage. He hated how the people of Boston were made to suffer. So he went around this town collecting donations to support them. In September, he met with 44 other men to prepare for armed conflict. Together they formed our local Kentish Guards militia. The great Nathaniel Greene spearheaded the group's training. And alongside him, Augustus drilled right here on Academy Field. The next spring, war broke out. Augustus said goodbye to his wife, Ruth, and joined militiamen from all over New England as they battled the British outside Boston. Those forces became the Continental Army. And with that, Augustus became one of the first members of the United States Army, serving under the command of General Greene. That summer, he was on duty near Bunker Hill when the British aimed heavy artillery at his position. A cannonball struck him in the head, killing him instantly. He was the first Rhode Islander to die in the Revolution, and the first PG resident to give his life for our nation. He died in the sight of General Greene, who was devastated by the event, and wrote to his wife, Katie, "My heart melts with pity." So this morning, as we honor the many military sacrifices over the last 250 years, let's amplify our gratitude for our first fallen warriors, including Augustus Mumford. They gave their lives to obtain liberty and justice, the ideals that all other veterans have fought to defend. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt, for that East Greenwich perspective. Now I'd like to introduce Lieutenant Colonel Patrick Gallogly, U.S. Marine Corps, retired.
Thank you so much. Thank you to Governor McKee for both your presence and your words, sir. Thank you so much. To Mr. King, Staff Sergeant King joined the Marines in 1946. You honor us with your presence. Thank you so much for being here. General Chevalier and your soldiers, thank you so much for your continued protection of the 401. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Patrick C. Gallogly, United States Marine Corps, retired. I'm here for two very simple reasons. I'm a son of East Greenwich. When I was born, my parents lived in the Lilac Cottage, and I was raised right across from Eldridge on Friendship Street. When others had to get up at probably 7:30 to go to Eldridge for the bell at 9, I could get up at about 8:50 and go right across the street. I only left East Greenwich to join the Marine Corps in 1995. And when I retired 8 summers ago, I'd spent more than half of my life in the Marine Corps. The other reason is I had the privilege to fight in Iraq not once but in 2 heavy combat tours. I flew UH-1 helicopters in the drive to Baghdad in 2003, and I went back for my second combat tour as a pilot with the infantry calling airstrikes in the Second Battle of Fallujah. I plan to do everything in my power to articulate that the near 60 sons that we've lost from this town, they gave all of their tomorrows for your today. Thank you so much, Lee Carney, for your leadership and other town leaders. What a privilege to walk to this podium for the second time in 9 years. Thank you so much. For Mr. Carcieri, just a few years ago, we presumed the town had lost 34, starting from Augustus Mumford through Larry Callahan in 1968. But thanks to this man's years of scholarship, we now know, unfortunately, East Greenwich has probably lost on the order of the mid-50s, maybe as high as 60 sons killed in action, who died of their wounds, or who never came home to East Greenwich because of things like typhus or dysentery, or certainly camp disease, as they would have called it. So Martha McPartland knew about 10 casualties from the Civil War, but thanks to your scholarship, we know there were 37. So thank you so much, Matt. And speaking of the town's military heritage, I can't think of anyone that's done more to preserve the town's military heritage and to truly inspire the next generation than Patrick Donovan down at the Varnum Armory. Now, my Uncle George and my Aunt Roberta would have taken me to the Varnum Armory from the time I was in diapers. And what he has done down there is near, no exaggeration, almost miraculous. So thank you so much to Patrick and his staff. It's been incredible, not least of which is to put one of my flight suits in there, and it was such a privilege, such a privilege. Aristotle said that courage is the first of human virtues because it makes all others possible. So with the final few minutes, I want to give you just 4 vignettes on some of the heroism, some of the service of 4 of those sons from East Greenwich that never came home. It's fitting that a pastor from St. Luke's is here today. Thanks so much for joining us. Richard Dick Conover was born in Newport, Rhode Island, but he was raised right here because his father was a pastor at St. Luke's. I presume he probably lived right on Rectory Street, on Rector Street. He went off to fight in what they called the Great War, what we now call World War I. He was 19 years old. He fought at Cantigny, France, and he constituted a 3-man machine gun section. Richard was decorated, he wasn't decorated, he was noted twice for bravery. And I am a military historian, I'm here to tell you that to be noted twice for bravery in the First World War was incredible. His 3-man machine gun section fought off 50 to 60 Germans. Now, examples like that and all the other efforts of the American Expeditionary Force under General Blackjack Pershing, who retired in Narragansett, backing up our British allies and the French on their home force, stopped the Ludendorff offensive cold in 1918. Indomitable courage that Dick Conover showed from this town. We remember the Korean War when Roland Batson, not quite a son of East Greenwich, born in Summit, New Jersey, but we'll claim him because when he was at Quonset, he lived in East Greenwich and he flew off the USS Leyte. He flew and fought in World War II and Korea, and it's a privilege for me to wear the same naval aviator wings that Roland Batson wore. Going off to Korea, he led 2 divisions, that's 8 Douglas A-1 Skyraiders, an incredible ground attack aircraft, an incredibly beefy aircraft that could carry more than a B-17. Roland was leading that 8-ship, dropping bridges that were resupplying the North Korean army, railroad bridges. His engine was shot out, but he continued to press the target and he dropped 2 direct hits on a railroad bridge with a shot-out engine and did an incredible wheels-up landing. Incredible heroism. And he posthumously was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross. The second to last son that Eldridge lost was Mark Eldridge Meller. His name wasn't named for the famous doctor of the 19th century, but the school that I and Glenn attended, and his mother had been a nurse there. His father served proudly in the East Greenwich Police Department. I know he was friends with my family, with both my aunt and my uncle. He served honorably in Vietnam, and in May of 1968, he was killed in action. On his grave it says, be just and fear not. Be just and fear not. And the final example of indomitable courage was actually a son of my father's native Warwick. Warwick, our dad would pronounce it. But Charles Larry Callahan moved to East Greenwich. He lived on Tanglewood Drive. He worked at Almax, and multiple of his buddies from Almax joined the effort, joined the military during Vietnam. Mark literally married the girl next door on Tanglewood Drive. And they got married, and she was pregnant, and he went off to Vietnam. I was privileged to do the exact same role that he did years later, flying a Huey for the Marines. He flew for the Army in the 1st Cavalry Division. And one day, a call came in for an immediate resupply of a ground infantry unit that was surrounded. They would only take volunteers. And like Isaiah 6:8 in the Bible says, Larry said, "Send me." Larry and his crew that day was an all-New England crew. They landed, did the in extremis immediate resupply, and helped save that infantry unit. And then on takeoff, they were shot down and killed. But Larry also showed indomitable courage and was posthumously decorated with the Distinguished Flying Cross. So for just at least one combat veteran to the town, and it's such a privilege to address you again, I say the best way we can honor their memory is to carpe diem. Go out and seize the day. And you use the freedom that the very freedom they died to protect. Go enjoy it. Thank you.
Sometimes it takes an intimate setting like this to fully appreciate what Memorial Day means to the community of East Greenwich, and to hear it directly from several veterans and officials I've heard from today. Our final speaker, I'd like to introduce Major General Andrew Chevalier, the Adjutant General for the state of Rhode Island and Commanding General of the Rhode Island National Guard. The General is accompanied today by Command Sergeant Major Clark Hill, Chief Warrant Officer Bob Ewan,